Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Academy. Today's lesson is about dynamic attributes, and what that's all about is we're basically looking to store our metadata on chain versus just having something where we commit something to IPFS and it's pretty much stuck how it is. This is good for what I like to call dynamic NFTs. You'll typically see this for projects where it's very important that attributes can change. Again, you'll probably see this mostly for GameFi, where let's say you have a character and you have an NFT representing that character and you want to increment the attributes. This is what's going to help you do that. As always, if you're following along, all the lesson plans are available on the CryptoCadet Academy GitHub, so you can follow along with me there. So by the end of the project, our all access pass that we're creating with these dynamic attributes is going to look a little something like this. Just as a quick note, so we've got these attributes, we've got event access, we've got a couple other attributes that I will explain in a second. But basically, if you're following along at home, just know if you do this on a testnet, like right now I'm on Polygon Mumbai. If you do it on OpenSea's testnet, it's pretty slow when it comes to just reading these. So if you end up just checking on OpenSea and you see this, don't freak out. A lot of times I'll double check on Rarible testnet just to make sure that I know what I'm doing. But it should look like this when we launch it. And basically what we're looking to do is we want to change these attributes. So we're going to be able to increment event access every time a person goes to the event or enters the event, or if they do have reg A, which is going to be an attribute that we add, or game access, if it's going to be like a metaverse type thing, we're going to be able to change that. And to demonstrate that, what we can do is let's change this to false for reg A access. Okay. Okay. And so you see here the metadata has been updated. We can also, obviously we can increment event for token ID. Excellent. And let's go ahead and refresh. And boom. So we see now that we can increment event access depending on how you want to implement that counter. We can also change game access in reg A to true or false as we want. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about if we are going to start this contract is something called base 64. It's the way we are going to commit the code that we want to use for the attributes and convert that to JSON format, basically. So to get started, as always, we're going to open up Remix. And I guess the best place to start actually is what I'm not going to talk about, which is for this contract, there are a couple things that we're going to have built in already. What we have built in is it's going to be an ERC 721. It's going to be ownable. It's going to have reentry C-guard. None of that is necessary to cover, especially since this is an intermediate course. The before token transfer, in this particular instance, the reason why we needed to override it was we want to be able to allow the project to burn tokens, which some of you may already know, ERC 721, it doesn't allow transfers to the zero address. And so that's what that's for. And that's what you'd see when you see something overriding it. Not, again, out of the scope of this particular lesson, but it's good to know as well. Also, supports interface. This is actually something that we're going to cover in a further lesson, so stay tuned. But very important when you're building out your token ecosystem to understand what support interface does and why you need it. With that said, let's dive into our base 64. So what base 64 basically is, you can look this up. It's on, you can find this on GitHub. It's a library that's basically going to handle your conversion and allow you to store your metadata on chain. You don't really need to know too much about what it does. As a matter of fact, for the purposes of keeping this lesson short and expedient, just know that it's there. Just know that that's what it's for. As for uint to converting uint to string, what that basically is we're going to have token IDs that we're going to want to convert to make sure that it transfers properly or converts properly and reads properly as JSON, right? And then with putting all that together, we're going to be able to store everything on chain. So let's do that. So the very first thing we want to add is this uint to string function. And again, what that does is we're going to use it when we are going to convert our token IDs and basically concatenate them into our metadata in order to store it on chain. Now, first thing that we want to do, these red lines are a little annoying. What it's basically telling us to do is add our constructor. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, just so we can get rid of those lines. Let's call it all access pass. Oops. Give it a symbol. And let's commit our token URI. All right, got rid of that error. Now let's add a couple other items. So obviously first we're going to need our string for the token URI. Since they're tokens that people can mint, let's go ahead and give them a price. Even though it's free for now. Okay, now there are also going to be a couple things that we want to add into this. Namely, we want to create a struct for our attributes. So what that looks like, you can do something like this. I want to store the address of the owner, and I want to see if they have event access. And we're going to take all that and we're going to put it in a mapping so we can access it. Okay, now let's kind of think about what events do we want to give the person access to, or access passes. I don't want to call it events because that's something different. Access passes. So let's do something like, if you wanted to do something like give people different types of rights, if it's like a company setup, let's say you can purchase Reg A shares, and let's add Boolean, and maybe there will be a metaverse game. So can access game. And actually, let's not do that last one. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so what we just did was we created some Booleans that are going to change every time we update this contract. And what we want is we wanted to update the metadata on chain so that when a person goes to look at it, whether it's in their wallet, whether it's on OpenSea, they'll be able to see those changes. And if they try to sell the token, the person that's buying it can see those changes as well. Like, okay, this person, they have the pass or the NFT that allows them to purchase Reg A shares, or they have access to the Game Pass, or they do not. And certain attributes are going to change the valuation of that particular NFT. So that's kind of the importance of doing on-chain, where you can change it dynamically. So let's add a couple more things. We want to be able to increment. Actually, let me put it up here. Let's increment the total minted. And for that, I think we're good to go, other than the fact that I want to put in total supply. Let's override the current one. Okay, excellent. So whenever we mint a token, we want to simultaneously create this metadata. So what that's going to look like is every time we mint a token, we are going to create a new attribute struct for that particular owner. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's not do. Oops. Okay, so what does this mean, what I just did? So when it comes to, depending on how many they want to mint, we want to attribute each token ID with these attributes because they have their own individual attributes. So what we're doing with this for loop is we're getting the total supply, which is the total minted, and we're saying that this supply plus whatever this iterator is, so in this case it'd be the total supply plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, all the way up to at least equaling the quantity. And we're calling this internal function from ERC 721. And what we're doing from here is we are going to just mint an increment by 1. And each time we do that, we are also filling in our attributes mapping here with that token ID. And we're saying this token ID is going to have these attributes, right? So right now we've got, you have the owner address and then you have event access. And then other than these attributes, you also have these Booleans. And I'm gonna show you how all this looks in just a second. And then make sure to increment. Oh, is that? Perfect. Okay, so that's all we need with our mint function.